Welcome back to another Supercoach video with me, JD. You are joining me for a little bit of preseason fun. The Herald Sun, the Supercoach team, they've just released the positional changes for the 2022, which is pretty exciting. So we'll run through that today, talk about the players that I think are a little bit more relevant as a result of this. And yeah, I mean, like this is really big news for Supercoach. You find lots of diamonds in the rough or players you wouldn't have considered simply because they changed position. And likewise, there's a ton of players that were relevant in 2021 that you should now scratch off your lists. So let's quickly go through it. On the first page here, we've got all those that got DPP. Which is great. So George Hewitt became a defender mid. This is actually like sneaky exciting. So 73 average. He had, I think, 220s last year. One of them was concussion. Another one was, I can't remember. But he came back this year after being out in 2020 with a bulged disc in his back, which was pretty bad. But obviously he got through basically most of last year unscathed. So he's a really interesting option. I think he's going to be pushing up into the midfield for Carlton. They really need defensively minded midfields to kind of balance out their mix. So yeah, as a defender, like as a midfielder, wouldn't consider him at all. But as a defender, there's actually a little bit of upside here. So he's on the list. I don't know. He's not a strong green. It's not like he's a lock or anything. But green probably is just better represents players that are on the long list of ones I'm considering next year. Crisp. So yeah, he's actually a decently strong consideration now. I thought there was a good chance he was just going to be mid, like straight mid, but his durability is undeniable. 22 games every year, which is great. There's only a handful of players you can say that, and actually you could probably count them on one hand, and even fewer that are actually Supercoach relevant. So he is a strong consideration as a primo in defense. Definitely have him on your list. Stringer is one that I didn't think we'd be considering. I guess he was never going to be mid only, right? He did spend a lot of time mid, but yeah, actually the back half of the year he had like 60-70% CBAs. So crazy things have happened. This preseason he's rocked up already looking really fit. You could kind of see the back half of last year's form continuing. The Warriors at Essendon's midfield should be bolstered not only by the new draft recruit, but also with Caldwell being fit, with McGrath being fit, and Shield being fit. So maybe not as much midfield time for Stringer, which could seem come off this list. But yeah, anytime you have midfielders kind of playing in forward defense, which is what these first three are, like strong consideration, and very similar theme with Will Brodie. Actually, so Peter Wright, no consideration. Tui and Lukosius, they're not relevant. But yeah, Will Brodie moving to Freo at his pretty heavily discounted. If he gets games, you'd presume it's as an inside mid. There's some opportunity there with Chera going. So look like he's on the list to consider if he earns a spot in the preseason. But there's a good chance he doesn't even make the team and we forget about him altogether. Mitch Duncan. So he's on the wrong side of 30 now, which always hurts starting picks. But once again, midfielder that's eligible for forward line. He was actually really good last year for a lot of it up until when he got injured. And with that old guard of Geelong midfielders, continuing to age, Selwood, your Dangers, it does feel like Duncan could be someone that benefits from more mid-time as a result. So one to watch. A lot of these, I don't know if I'd start them, but they're all definitely relevant, and you could consider starting them or having them as upgrade targets. Elijah Hollands, this is a free hit. I mean, he was super talented from last year's draft. Even if it was mid only at 124k, we'd probably still all start him at a minimum as a bench. But as a forward mid, assuming he gets games, and I don't see any reason why he wouldn't, he's going to be in everyone's team. Easy pick. The next three are a worry. They're the GWS Brigade. I mean, like most, we'd sworn off Liam Cameron because he does terrible things to good people. Rip Josh Kelly. Actually, can you imagine if he was a forward? Damn, that would have given me scares this year. But yeah, so Whitfield was probably the only GWS player I was considering, and it's going to be hard to pass up, especially with the DPP. Cogs and Taranto are two that I didn't think I'd be considering starting. I mean, Cogs, we all know he's battled with both injuries and form, and then kind of been played out of position a little bit. he might not get the discount. Like, there's a world where the people running running Supercoach decide that he shouldn't get any discount and just override that, and he becomes 320k. Which, do you know what? Probably still interesting as a forward option. There's still enough upside. Like, if you're thinking, can they kind of make 35 points, then yeah, there's like he could get back to 95, like maybe. Actually, if he gets back to 95, he's a really good option regardless. So yeah, like I think Cogs is one that we'll look at, especially if there's a good preseason. He gets through it all right, and he looks like he's going to have a decent role again, where he's at least playing some mid minutes. And Taranto had a bit of a down year as well. I dislike watching him play because he just hacks the ball out of the center clearance and doesn't lower his eyes at all. It's very frustrating. Like, he's a super dream team player, but for Supercoach, not as much. But with him being forward eligible, we consider Wingard, not relevant. Jackson, yeah, not while Gorn's in the side. TT, he finished the back half of last year phenomenally. I guess the big question mark on him is whether or not he gets enough mid time, especially with Greenwood and Horn Francis coming to the side, as well as some of the other young guns they've got. Like, that seems like a tough proposition, but yeah, definitely one that we could start next year. Gresham is an interesting one. At 295k, assuming he gets a 20% discount, he is when he was playing midfield, he was probably the same second best midfielder behind Steele, and kind of add some speed and some burst and some class that maybe the rest of the mids don't have in spades. So he's someone that, if he's fit, once again, like we're banking on him getting a full preseason, looking good, then yeah, like he as a forward option seems like the type that just makes you money and either becomes a keeper, or like maybe he gets re-injured, but by the time he gets re-injured, he's already made enough money and you move him on. Yeah, Duggan, no interest, and Trelaw. So, like, I guess interesting with Trelaw, there was some numbers posted by Freako and then also by the Fantasy Take TV podcast, which I'm a part of, this week, looking at both his centre bounce attendance times before and after his injury, as well as his Supercoach scores before and after his injury. And as you'd somewhat expect, both his centre bounce attendances and Supercoach scores were down. So if they kind of revert back to what they were pre-injury, and by the way, exact same trend for Dunkley, not as pronounced on the centre bounce attendances, but as pronounced on the Supercoach scores. So if they kind of revert back to what they were at the start of the year, with Trelaw kind of playing more time in the midfield, obviously having another year to gel with the team as well, like, this seems like a really good forward option. It's just the injury history that's kind of concerning. And then English, yeah, like, I don't know. He's kind of borderline. What's his best position? Can he score enough points there? Is there much upside at his price? Maybe. Like, he's still growing into that body, right? Yeah, one to consider. So yeah, lots of exciting options here. And I think the most pleasant part is we don't have to worry too much about our forward lines. There are so many midfielders that are going to be playing in the forward line next year, and there's a good mix of those that have got discounts and those that are kind of closer to premiums, that we should be able to fill it out without too many worries, which is very different to the year we just had. All right, DPP gone. So this mob is basically all irrelevant. Scratch them off your list. Don't have to worry about Zorko this year, which is great. Laird, I mean, yeah, like he's great and he's durable, but he's just that next rung down that there's so many other premiums you'd start over him. Kennedy and Dow, like Spuds. Poulter was great last year, but like, yeah, just wouldn't consider him. McRae, if he's cheap enough, and like Collingwood doesn't need midfielders, so he's one that like could come back on as a sneaky consideration as like that top price kind of cash cow option. Caldwell, if he was a forward, maybe he'd bait some people, but yeah, that's a hard avoid. Danger and Phillips, easy to avoid as well. Madden, Tracy, Cockatoo, all off the list. And then Marshall's the one that's a little bit sad. I think a lot of people were hoping that we'd get another year of him as a forward and could potentially start him there. He obviously does have some value at his price, just given that he had a year with injuries. But like, there's going to be a few good ruck options there, like Darcy, Grundy gone. So like, I don't know, does Marshall replace any of those next year? Hard to say. But I guess he's like one you probably would consider. Positional change. So the first group here, I guess like the thing I wanted to point out more than anything else, so like Impey, Warner, Hall, Zeeble, Dale, Campbell, Bergman, that was our forward line last year. Like a lot of that was our forward line, and they've all changed position, basically defense or mid, and it kind of shows you like the types of forward picks you want, which is those that aren't playing as forward. So yeah, I guess that's what's exciting about that first page. There are lots of options that fit that group. And then, yeah, everyone else on this list, I guess, isn't really relevant. The only one that people might consider is Mills as a pure mid, which, like, I don't know. Once again, it's a little bit like Laird, where, like, there's just other premium midfielders that have done it for longer, that have good durability, that still have a bit of upside, that I just can't imagine you'd pick him over any of those. All right. Interestingly, there's a few that didn't change at all, which is somewhat good. Two to call out, which is Dawson, who moved from Swans to the Crows. He played a variety of positions, but really, really had a lot of good scores up on the wing. He is going to be put into the guts. Well, they say that he wants to play midfield. They haven't actually specified whether this is like inside, outside, what that's going to look like, but like there's some upside still at this price point, and he's durable, and he's in like a good age profile as well. So like this is one to consider as a premium option, I think. Of the rest, there are so many traps in here. Like side bottom, I think is a trap. He showed that this year. Fife's probably a trap. Like just can't get fit. Not gonna have a full preseason. Houston was pretty much injured all of last year with that AC joint. He still scored pretty well. Like maybe he's one that some people consider. Probably not for me. Bolton, he floundered last year. I mean, yeah, there's upside at his price, but like, could you trust him? I don't think so. I don't think that's a starting pick. I think that's an upgrade unless you really love him. Dusty is a no-go. Yeah, like he's already starting to fade. He takes the regular season a little bit more lightly, and he's going to be coming into this off season like 10 kilos underweight or whatever they reported. So yeah, it's a no-go. Heaney is interesting, as he is every year as a forward option. I think there may be enough other options that we don't look at him, but he is like 100k cheaper than some of these other ones. Like what you got Dunkley at 551. I mean, Stringer's 500, that's cheaper. But like Taranto's 520. Oh, like Taron Thomas. Like, would I pick Taron Thomas or would I pick Heaney? Would I pick Treloar? Yeah, I don't know. I think Heaney's probably not relevant. And then finally, Dunkley, who is almost guaranteed to be starting my side. I mean, even though he's not the most durable, his upside is the craziest of any of these that are going to be in our forward lines. And what did he start the year at? Like a 130 average through the first like 7 or 8 rounds before he did his shoulder. So even though it was forced to trade at that point, he had scored enough and made you enough money that it didn't matter. And it just feels like one of those ones where the cost of not starting him could be really, really high, and you probably want to avoid that. And then finally, to wrap up this video, we'll just go through the rookies that were released. So got some positions and some prices here if you haven't seen the prices on these. To me, it's actually like quite disappointing. Was maybe hoping for like a Horn Francis or a Dacos to have some forward eligibility as well, but not to be. So yeah, none of these really stand out as like obvious options that both have like good DPP and like a good chance of starting best 22 and a good price. Like that combination, I can't spot any obvious ones. But like Horn France is probably unlikely to be started just because I think they'll play him too much forward. I think Dacos is a good chance to be in your starting teams, even though they've talked about playing him off half back to start. Like that's still a Supercoach friendly position for rookie. He'll be best 22 all year, so like he's an accumulator. So like you could see paying that higher price tag. But yeah, unfortunately, like nothing too exciting about the rooks. And yeah, that's all I have for you today. So some exciting changes. We'll finish on once again all those that had to be added. Lots to consider for next year in your sides, especially in the forward line. Not so much in defense or even in ruck this year actually. But yeah, the forward lines, there's lots of good DP options, which makes me really excited. It's been one of the trickier lines, and I still think it's going to be tricky this year, but more so tricky in the sense that we have a lot of decent options, and it's going to be picking from the best of those rather than in prior years where it's like there's almost been no choices and people almost get forced into the same starting picks as a result. So yeah, this is nice. So yeah, I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching. And if you have any questions, hit me up below.